And I said to Brock, I have done many stupid things for you, but I am not going to bolt myself into an ambulance, into a gurney, and go across the country as a patient in an ambulance for you. How it all came together were the two lunatics, which would be Hal Needham and my husband, spent the day at Watkins Glen together. And they were, I think, shooting for CBS. And, of course, they stopped in a pub. Needham couldn't go 4 miles without stopping in a pub. I mean, he was single, and that was his life, because he would sit and talk to everybody and, shine on them and whatever. So I didn't know that they were stopping at a pub, but after they told me, I knew, and they stopped. And Needham did not know very much about the Cannonball. And so Needham said, well, tell me about this Cannonball thing. And so Brock told him, and Needham said, well, shit, we got to do that. And Brock said, no, we don't got to do that. He said, it's already been done. He said, I've been ripped off by Gumball Rally and this one and that one. And he said, it's been done. He had a deal with Avildsen for the Cannonball. And Gumball swept in right underneath him and stole it. And Brock didn't have the money in those days to protect himself or even thought about it, really. So Brock said, so it's already been done. It's history. I'm not doing that. And so Needham's egged him on and said, tell me some more. Come on, tell me some more. So by the end of their drinking experience, Needham had, as he would do to anybody, convinced him that he could make him a star, And he didn't present it that way, but he said, nobody's going to do it like I can do it, no ego there. He said, we're going to do that, Brock. And he said, well, now let's think. He said, what kind of car would I use? What would I do? And that's how they started to talk about, and basically Needham is the one that threw out the ambulance. And he said, Yates, we're going to do it in an ambulance because nobody's going to stop the ambulance. And Yates is not sure how much Liquor is talking or how much Needham is talking. He didn't know him that well at this point. And he said, I didn't know how to respond, and I figured I'll just roll with it because he probably will forget it. And, it's hooray for Hollywood. Nothing's going to happen anyway. So they agree to agree. And Brock thought that was the end of the conversation, really. And Needham was coming out to our house to stay, which was a miraculous experience because Needham hates the cold weather. And this was fall in Watkins Glen, and Needham would pay anything not to be in Western New York during that time. And had it not been for CBS, whatever. So he agreed to stay with us. We were new in that house. So they came home, and they were all jazzed up, and, how was your day, dear? And Brock's said, well, he started to say something, and Needham said, we're running another Cannonball. We're going to do it for the new movie. And I said, I beg your pardon. It's nice to see you too, Hal. What are you talking about? Then they laid out this dream. And I said, oh, this is great. And I had not had any time to talk to Brock, so I didn't know whether he thought thumbs up or thumbs down. So I just kind of went along with it and said, sure, it's never going to happen. I know it's not. Then Needham says, and Pammy, you're going to be the patient in the ambulance. And I looked at him and I said, I beg your pardon. And I said to Brock, I have done many stupid things for you, but I am not going to bolt myself into an ambulance, into a gurney, and go across the country as a patient in an ambulance for you. I said, are you crazy? And he said, no, Pammy, we can do this. We can do this. Because Brock was a forever optimist. He always saw the glass was half full. He did. God bless him, he did. And so he played right into Needham's hands. And Needham stayed at the house for several days, and they started to work on a screenplay. And Brock locked himself in his office with Hal, who was a martinet and would not let Yates up from writing. And every once in a while, I'd get buzzed, and he'd say, get me out of here. Come get me out of here. He's killing me. And because Needham was so focused, that was just part of his nature. He just was so focused. That began the concept, and Needham just later, after a few days, headed back to LA, and we thought we'd never hear anything more about it. And within a few days, Needham called Brock. Brock's agent called Brock and talked to Needham, and this whole cycle started. It just gained a momentum. And I found this out from Andre not too long ago, who's my partner in the new Cannonball project. And Andre was a producer of the first one with Burt and Dom all those years ago. And we've stayed in touch in all these years. But it turns out, and I just found out this a couple of weeks ago, I didn't realize it, that there was a rumor that Brock had written a first draft of a screenplay. And unfortunately or fortunately, it was a good draft. The plot was good, but it had a little bit more serious side to it. It was more like what really happened in the Cannonball. It was a comedy, but it was not a farce. And that it was given to McQueen to read, and McQueen read it and liked it. And he said he would do it. And Brock was so psyched because he, thought McQueen was great. And he would have been a great guy to do it, plus the fact that the movie would have been more of what it was really about. And McQueen understood it, and it would have been a neat project. And at the end of the McQueen version of it, the Brock McQueen version, people would have left the movie theater saying, well, that may be the stupidest thing I've ever seen, but it really happened. That concept was totally washed away when Burt got to it. Burt didn't care about anything but Burt. He had a bitter feud going with the Oscars and the theatrical community out there because they would never give him the credibility for being a good actor. He was a comedian who could do crazy car movies. Steve McQueen developed cancer, so the project went away. And so Hal grabbed it, and Hal and Burt they lived together. He lived in Burt's guest house, and they had been friends for years. So Hal cajoled Burt, and then Andre Morgan, who's a producer, one of the producers, just told me this a few weeks ago, called Burt when Steve McQueen dropped out. And he said, I knew he was going to tell me no, because he told the community in writing, in all the gossip sheets and stuff, that he was going to stick it to, the Screen Actors Guild and, blah, blah, blah. So Andre said, I didn't have anything to lose. So I called Burt and said to him, hey, Burt, we have a movie that we think you'd be really great for. And it's called The Cannonball. And it's about the car. And Burt said, okay, stop there. I'm not talking about this. A car movie? You know how I feel about that. I'm never doing one. And he went on and on. And Andre said, take a breath, Burt. We're going to offer you $5 million up front for 5 weeks of work. Andre said the line went dead. He said there was no air on the other end of the telephone line. And Andre said Al Ruddy and I were laughing our asses off because we knew that we'd stop him with this harangue if possibly we made him a deal he couldn't refuse. And that's how the movie got made. And it was no more or less that. And then as soon as Burt got his hands around it, he took it, and poor Brock, every day he had to rewrite that movie. He'd go over and sit with Burt and Dom, and they'd tell him, and they would literally sit around and say, I wonder who's on vacation. Oh, I wonder if he wanted to do a cameo. Oh, I think she's good. I think she'd come in for this. And they developed the movie with all these stars, and then it became a happening. And all the actors wanted to do it because it was fun, and there was money, but fun, and they'd have a lark, and they could work together, and they'd do silly stuff. So it became a happening. And it was all created and managed. But, well, Needham was the moving force. Andre and Al had the money, but it was Burt. And Burt wanted Dom. I'm not doing the movie without Dom, because they were buds. So it became festival. And that's basically how it started. And every day they'd hang up the phone and laugh and say, well, Jamie Farr's going to come in and he's going to be a sheik, you know. And then Jackie Chan came in, and that was the first U.S. movie they had ever made. They flew him in from Hong Kong. I remember the day that they arrived in the desert. We were looking around, and all of a sudden the car is shot into the air. The Chinese men are yakking and, you know, screaming and going crazy in the movie, and then it lands down in the desert and then keeps on going. That was the beginning and the end of anything we'd ever seen with Jackie Chan, and they flew out the same day, and they couldn't speak a word of English, so nobody could talk to them. They never met anybody. It was, you know, it was all like that. And then John Carradine had the fight. Well, it was Roger Moore in the desert. I mean, it was so much fun because everybody was just doing wacky things and they were having such a good time. And the audience realized that. The audience felt that energy, and that's what made the movie what it was. But it was a bunch of happenstances.
Who wants a free carbon fiber ring? Well, right now, Patrick Adair Designs is giving away a free carbon fiber ring with any purchase if you use the code VINWIKICF at checkout on their website. You can find them at the link in the description below. You can also follow along on Patrick Adair's YouTube channel. You've seen him here telling car stories, but over there, he documents his journey in entrepreneurism and some of the amazing things they do to create rings out of the most interesting materials from Earth and from space. So check them out now and thank them for their support of VINWiki.